Family dinners were always the same, too loud, too bright, too full of opinions tossed around like confetti. And at the center of it all? Samantha. She swept into my home like she owned it, wearing heels too high for comfort and perfume too strong for close quarters. She kissed Daniel on the cheek, barely nodded at me, and immediately launched into a recap of her day as if we'd all been waiting on the edge of our seats. Ugh, I told my assistant to order oat milk, not almond. Honestly, why is good help so hard to find? Everyone chuckled. I stirred the pasta quietly and kept setting plates. We sat down to eat, and as usual, the conversation steered toward work, money, vacations. The things Samantha lived for. So, she said, smiling sweetly at me across the table, Olivia, any updates on your... What do you do again? Her tone dripped with condescension. It wasn't a real question. She knew I'd left my last corporate job quietly. She just wanted to say it out loud. I'm working on some hospitality consulting projects, I replied calmly. Oh right, she laughed. So basically unemployed with a laptop and a Pinterest board. Laughter followed. Her fiancé even chuckled awkwardly, trying to keep up with her rhythm. Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but I gently nudged his knee. Let it go, I thought. She turned to the others. Isn't she just the sweetest minimalist? No shopping. No trips, no glam. I mean, if I saved like that, I'd go insane. Life's meant to be lived, not hoarded. She raised her wine glass with a smirk, to spending money and actually enjoying life. I raised my glass too. But I was thinking, to silence, patience, and watching fools trip on their own egos. I used to believe that if I stayed polite, if I didn't take the bait, things would settle. But with Samantha, passivity was fuel. She loved reminding me how different I was. How unexciting. How ordinary. I don't know how you do it, Olivia, she said one afternoon while flipping through wedding magazines on my couch. You wear the same 3 outfits and shop like we're still in the recession. I just buy what I need. Exactly. She beamed. You're like a little financial nun. She laughed and turned to Daniel. You poor thing. When's the last time she bought lingerie or took you on a real vacation? Oh wait, probably never. My jaw clenched, but I stayed quiet. Daniel excused himself, uncomfortable. Another time, at a family barbecue, I brought a homemade salad and a dessert I'd prepped the night before. Samantha showed up with sushi trays and luxury cupcakes she ordered just because Olivia's food is. Well, it's cute. Cute. That word again. She never insulted me directly. Just peppered her words with passive-aggressive glitter bombs. Some people are just not built for the hustle. And that's okay. Like, Olivia has her calm vibe. She's not built for big wins, and that's fine. She said it as if she were talking about a rescue puppy. You're like a cottagecore queen. All minimal and frugal. It's so anti-capitalist. I love it for you. Her compliments felt like stabs in lace gloves. She'd brag about her promotions in PR, about hosting influencer brunches and rubbing elbows with magazine editors. While glancing at me like I was a relic from a different century. You should come out more, she'd say. Get your face out there. Network. Socialize. You can't just sit at home and hope life changes. But I wasn't hoping. I was building. Brick by brick. Step by step. Quietly, without hashtags or filters. What Samantha didn't know was that my cottagecore life was a strategic decision. I wasn't frugal out of lack, I was focused out of choice. Every dollar I saved went into something bigger. Something she wouldn't understand. Yet. And when that day came, I'd smile the same quiet smile she thought was weakness. Because the loudest person in the room isn't always the most powerful. Samantha once asked me why I didn't post on Instagram more. How do people even know you're alive? She joked while sipping a mimosa. I laughed politely and told her, I like keeping things to myself. And I meant it. While she posted outfit of the day shots from luxury rooftops and tagged every drink she sipped, I was waking up at 4:30 a.m. to answer emails from architects, designers, and real estate attorneys. I didn't need to check in online because my real check-ins were site inspections, licensing meetings, and spreadsheets filled with capital expenditure plans. She thought I had nothing going on because I didn't talk about it. But truthfully, I had everything going on. After years of saving, investing, and working quietly in hotel management and hospitality consulting, I finally took the leap. I bought my first property, a rundown estate just outside the city with cracked marble floors and broken windows but solid bones. Everyone thought I was crazy. Even Daniel was hesitant at first. Liv, it's beautiful, but that place needs work. And I'm going to give it that, I told him. Every inch of it. It took over a year to renovate, but when the hotel opened under the name Celine Haven, something magical happened. People came. The vibe was different. Elegant, minimalist, but personal. I designed every room to feel like a retreat, not just from the noise of the world, but from the performance of life. There were no grand halls or crystal chandeliers, just peace, subtle luxury, and intentional comfort. Word spread fast. A write-up in a lifestyle blog led to a magazine feature. Within a year, I bought a second property, then a third. Now, 5 years later, I owned 6 boutique hotels under the Celine Haven franchise. Samantha still called me Boring Olivia. And I still smiled when she did. Because I didn't need to convince anyone of my worth. My portfolio spoke louder than any clapback ever could. Family dinner that Sunday started like any other. Too many voices talking over each other, clinking glasses, laughter that was just a bit too loud. Then Samantha stood up. Her left hand sparkled under the chandelier, and she smiled like a pageant queen on her final walk. We have an announcement. Her fiancé, Troy, stood beside her like a human mannequin, holding her hand while she dramatically fanned out her fingers. We're getting married. She squealed. The table erupted in applause. Hugs, screams, champagne clinks. We're going big. She added. This won't be one of those basic, backyard weddings. This is going to be it. Dream venue, luxury everything, and I already have the place picked out. You already found a venue? Someone asked. Of course I did, she said, flipping her hair. I've had it bookmarked for years. It's the newest Celine Haven property, the one with the Skyview ballroom. It's so stunning, it looks like a Vogue spread. I froze. Daniel looked at me, raising an eyebrow, already guessing. That's our property, isn't it? He whispered. The Rosewood location, I confirmed under my breath. Do you know anyone there? Samantha asked, not bothering to include me in the conversation. We should totally use your boring little consulting connections to get a deal. I stayed silent, watching her bask in her own spotlight. She was already picturing herself descending the marble staircase in her designer gown, guests gasping, influencers snapping photos. She didn't know the staircase she fantasized about, I designed it. She didn't know the chandelier in the Skyview ballroom, I picked it. Every crystal strand, every fixture. She didn't know that the menu she was hoping to customize, I approved every chef hire that created it. And she sure as hell didn't know the contracts? They passed through my desk first. But I said nothing. Because the reveal was going to be so much better in person. It didn't take long for Samantha to start calling me. The next day, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and disbelief. Olivia, I tried to call and book the Celine Haven Rosewood location for the wedding, but they told me the dates I wanted were unavailable. I could hear the frustration in her voice. She wasn't used to being told no. What? But I told you it was perfect. I was sure it was available. They must have made a mistake. I was looking at their website for months. I could almost hear her flipping through her wedding planner, panicking, scrambling for an answer she could give everyone at dinner that night. She hadn't yet told anyone that her dream venue wasn't secured. No mistake, I said, my voice as calm as I could make it. It's definitely booked for that weekend, Samantha. The entire property, in fact. She was silent for a moment, trying to piece it together. Then she laughed nervously. Oh, come on. There has to be some mix-up. You can make a call for me, right? I felt a small victory in the pit of my stomach. Her words were so familiar, her assumption that I would swoop in and fix everything. I could have easily made one call to get her a reservation. But I wasn't going to. I'm afraid I don't get involved with event bookings for that venue anymore, I said. My tone light but firm. I've handed that responsibility over to my team. They've set the schedules. Her voice sharpened. But Olivia, you know me. We're family. I'm your sister-in-law. We have to make this happen. My wedding is going to be the talk of the town. There was that word again, have. Like she was entitled to anything she wanted just because we shared a family name. I understand, but I'm afraid there's nothing I can do, I said, unable to keep a small smile from tugging at my lips. She sighed loudly on the other end of the phone. I just don't get it, Olivia. You've always been so low-key. So frugal. Why would you keep a dream venue like that to yourself? I mean, you could have helped me, but instead, you're just letting me struggle like this. Again. Her words hit their mark. I could almost feel the weight of her assumption, that I was simply frugal and incapable of understanding what a real celebration looked like. She was completely oblivious to the hours I had poured into creating this venue, to the fact that it was mine. I'm sorry it's such an inconvenience, I said, trying to mask the satisfaction creeping up my throat. But I'm sure you'll find another venue that works for your wedding. You deserve something special. Her scoff echoed through the phone. Fine. I'll figure it out myself, she said, her tone turning cool. But don't be surprised if I come back to you asking for a big favor. After all, you owe me. The call ended, and I let out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. There it was again, the assumption that because she was family, I owed her. The irony of it all was almost painful. She thought she had nothing to do with my business, that she was just a bystander in my success. But in truth, she had just unknowingly walked into the biggest mistake she could have made, underestimating me. I didn't owe her anything. But her upcoming realization that I was the one she was now begging for help from? That was about to be her downfall. The day of the wedding venue reveal came quicker than I expected. I had spent the last few days with a calm confidence, knowing that when the time came, Samantha would get exactly what was coming to her. I had no intention of confronting her directly. Instead, I would let the truth unfold in front of her, on her own terms. I'd never enjoyed the spotlight, but this time, I'd make sure she couldn't ignore the fact that her so-called dream wedding was built on my foundation. It was a Thursday afternoon when she finally showed up at the Rosewood location for a site tour. She had made a reservation with my team without realizing who was at the helm. Her fiancé, Troy, had been gracious enough to follow along, though he seemed less than thrilled by the prospect of meeting with someone who clearly made Samantha uncomfortable. The moment they arrived, I was already there. I stood by the front entrance, watching as Samantha and Troy stepped out of their car. Samantha looked around, excited, her eyes sparkling like a child's at a candy store. She was already imagining herself in the ballroom, the flowers, the cake, the perfect Instagram moment. As they walked toward the entrance, one of my employees greeted them with a warm smile and a formal introduction. Welcome to Celine Haven Rosewood. Ms. Olivia Jennings will be showing you around today. Her face froze mid-step. Her hand clutched Troy's arm. She looked from him to me, her expression shifting from confusion to realization, then to shock. Olivia? She stammered. What are you doing here? I smiled, letting the moment sink in before speaking. I'm the owner of Celine Haven Rosewood, Samantha. All the properties. The team. Everything. Including this beautiful venue you've been dying to book. Her mouth parted in disbelief, her eyes wide with a mix of rage and embarrassment. She looked around, as if trying to figure out if I was joking, but it was no joke. You own this place? She whispered, her voice strained. I do, I confirmed, my tone calm and collected. And just so you know, I don't make exceptions for anyone. Not even family. Troy looked back and forth between us, his face reddening. But Samantha? She stood there, frozen. Her entire world, the dream wedding she'd been imagining for months, came crashing down in an instant. But we're family, she finally exclaimed. You owe me this, Olivia. You can't do this. I raised a hand, signaling to my staff to prepare to show them out. I'm sorry, Samantha, I said, my voice steady. But family isn't a pass to take advantage of people. I've worked hard for everything I've built, and if you want this venue, you'll need to follow the same process as everyone else. For a moment, she just stared at me, unable to form a coherent sentence. Then, with a harsh exhale, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the room. Troy followed reluctantly, his eyes avoiding mine. Samantha, however, couldn't look at me. Her pride was shattered, and she knew it. As they left, I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle over me. The truth had finally been revealed. And Samantha? She would never look at me the same way again. The following days after the disastrous site visit were filled with texts, phone calls, and passive-aggressive comments from Samantha. She was relentless. She had made it clear that she was not going to give up on her dream wedding at Celine Haven Rosewood, even though it was mine, and even though I had turned her down. She started with subtle tactics, but soon, her manipulation became more obvious. It was a Wednesday evening when I received a long message from Samantha, crafted just like one of her high school essays. She was trying to guilt-trip me, but she didn't quite have the finesse. Olivia, I know you're upset with me. And I probably said some things that were harsh. But you know how important this wedding is to me. I've always looked up to you, even though it doesn't seem like it. I just want the best for my big day. It's been a lifelong dream, and I can't do it without you. Please, can we talk? I'm really hurting, and I need your help. I almost laughed when I read it. She'd somehow managed to twist the situation into me being the one in the wrong. The "I'm really hurting" line? Classic Samantha. It was her go-to when she wanted to turn the tables and make people feel responsible for her feelings. I paused, finger hovering over the reply. I could easily ignore her, but I had a feeling that wouldn't stop her. I decided to give a quick, measured response. I understand that you're disappointed, Samantha, but my decision stands. You'll need to look elsewhere for your venue, she didn't reply immediately. But I knew I hadn't heard the last of her. The following week, I received a call from her. It was early in the morning, but I knew this wasn't a casual check-in. Olivia, I really don't know what to do anymore, she said, her voice strained. I don't have anyone to turn to. My wedding plans are falling apart, and I just can't seem to catch a break. I'm so tired of everything being such a fight. I just need something to go right for once. Her voice cracked at the end, like she was on the verge of tears again. She was spinning the story of how everything in her life was going wrong, how she had sacrificed for her family, how she had always been the lesser sister compared to me, how nothing in her life ever worked out. The implication was clear: if I didn't help her, she'd be ruined. This wedding would be her final chance to prove herself. I could almost hear the desperation in her voice as she said, I really need you to make this happen. Liv, it's the only thing I have left. Please don't let me fail at this too. I could feel the weight of her words, but it was all manipulation. She had been doing this for years, using guilt and sadness to get what she wanted. But I wasn't going to fall for it. Not this time. Samantha, I said, my voice unwavering, I've already told you. I'm not giving you special treatment because you're family. You have to find another venue. I can't just make exceptions. I've built this business on integrity, and I'm not going to compromise that for anyone. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Finally, she spoke, her voice lower and more venomous than before. Fine. You're not the person I thought you were, Olivia. I thought you'd understand how much this means to me. But I guess I was wrong. I could hear the resentment building in her tone. I had officially crossed into her list of enemies. But that was okay. I wasn't playing this game for her approval. I wasn't doing this to be the nice sister-in-law. You're right, Samantha, I said, calmly. You've made it clear how much you expect from everyone. But I've had enough of your emotional manipulation. I'm done, and I won't be changing my mind. She hung up without saying another word. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had made my boundaries clear, and she wasn't going to cross them. She would either accept it or move on. But no matter how many times she tried to guilt me, the answer would still be the same. After the phone call, the silence between Samantha and me stretched on for days. It wasn't like the typical tension we'd had before, where we would eventually work things out. This felt different. Samantha was no longer playing the sweet, misunderstood victim. Now, she was angry, and I had no intention of playing her game anymore. It was the following weekend when I saw her again. She approached me at a family brunch. Her expression tight with frustration, her eyes shadowed by something far darker than her usual self-righteousness. She looked like a storm was brewing beneath her usual facade. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. Olivia, she started, her voice sharp, you really think you've won, don't you? I raised an eyebrow. I'm not trying to win, Samantha. I'm simply standing by my decision. You've made it clear you don't like that, but I'm not going to change. Her lips twisted into a thin smile, but there was nothing amused about it. You think you've got it all figured out, huh? Just because you're successful now doesn't mean you can forget what it feels like to have nothing. She looked around the table, making sure everyone was listening. You act like you're above me, but let me remind you, I'm still the one who's been holding this family together. I'm the one who gets things done. You're just too busy hiding behind your wealth and pretending to be perfect. I could feel the familiar sting of her words, but I held my ground. Samantha, this isn't about you getting things done, it's about respect. You keep assuming that your wants are more important than everyone else's. This is about me sticking to my principles. And if you can't respect that, then maybe we need some space. She stepped forward, her voice lowering to a whisper, but there was an edge to it now, a calculated sharpness. Do you know how much you've hurt me? You've always acted like you're the better sister-in-law. You've always been the favorite, and now you're making sure I fail. I wanted something for once that was mine, and you're taking it from me. Her voice cracked, and I could see a flash of vulnerability, but I knew better than to fall for it. I had already seen this act too many times before. The tears, the pity, she was trying to manipulate me again, but this time, I wasn't going to be swayed. You're not failing. Samantha, I said firmly. You're just learning that not everyone is going to hand you everything you want, just because you ask for it. Life doesn't work that way. The table went quiet as the weight of my words settled in. For a moment, I wondered if I had crossed a line. But Samantha didn't say anything else. She stood there, her eyes flicking from me to the others, waiting for someone to come to her defense. But no one did. Samantha's facade began to crack. The anger that had been simmering beneath the surface broke through. And I saw her for what she really was, someone who had always relied on manipulation and charm to get her way, someone who could never face the reality of hard work and self-reliance. She took a breath, trying to regain composure, but it was clear she wasn't done yet. "You think I don't know what I'm doing?" she said, her voice filled with bitterness. "You think I don't see through you? All this principle talk, as if you haven't spent your life hiding behind your so-called success. You're just as scared as I am. You just hide it better." Her words stung, but I didn't let them get to me. She was trying to pull me into her web of guilt once more. But I wouldn't allow it. Not this time. "Samantha, you can't keep blaming others for your choices. You can't expect me to clean up your messes or give you a free pass because you're family. I'm not here to enable your behavior. You need to take responsibility for yourself, like the rest of us." For the first time, I saw her falter. It wasn't the dramatic outburst I was used to. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She just looked at me, her eyes betraying a mixture of anger and something else, perhaps doubt or fear. Her shoulders sagged slightly, and she looked away for a moment. I could tell she was searching for something in me, some sign of weakness, some part of me that would break, so she could find a way back into my life. But I stood firm. I had made my decision, and it wasn't just about the wedding venue anymore. It was about setting boundaries, about taking control of my own life and not allowing her to manipulate me anymore. Samantha looked up at me again, and for the first time, she didn't have a comeback ready. Her lips pressed together tightly, and she nodded once, almost as if she was acknowledging that she had lost. But even then, she couldn't bring herself to say the words. Instead, she simply turned and walked away, her steps slow but purposeful. I watched her go, knowing that this time, things had truly changed between us. She wasn't going to get what she wanted. Not anymore. The weeks that followed were filled with a tense calm. The fallout from Samantha's failed attempt to manipulate me hadn't quite settled in. She had tried to rally the family to her side, spinning tales of how I had betrayed her, of how I was holding her dreams hostage, but the more she pushed, the more the family saw through her antics. Slowly, the tide turned. My husband, Jacob, had always been a bit of a peacekeeper, always trying to avoid family drama. But the more Samantha tried to involve him in her crusade, the more distant he became. At first, he was silent, listening to both sides, but over time, he couldn't ignore the truth. Samantha wasn't the golden child she always pretended to be. She wasn't the misunderstood, hard-working woman she claimed to be. She was simply someone used to getting her way, and when she didn't, she resorted to playing the victim. One evening, as we sat in our living room, Jacob turned to me, a look of contemplation on his face. "Olivia, I've been thinking," he began. "I've heard everything from her, her side of the story, the sob stories, the guilt trips. But I'm starting to see what you've been talking about all along. It's not about fairness for her. It's about control. She can't stand it when things don't go her way." I nodded, relieved that Jacob was finally coming around. "Exactly," I said, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "And the thing is, I don't even want to be part of her manipulation anymore. She's always undermined me, calling me antisocial and a failure, but it was never about that. It was about her inability to respect boundaries." Jacob sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "I'll talk to her. I'll tell her that her behavior is out of line. She needs to understand that she's not going to get special treatment just because she's family." I appreciated his support, but I knew that this was something Samantha had to confront on her own. She couldn't be coddled anymore. It was time for her to face the consequences of her actions. The following week, Samantha reached out to Jacob, but I knew it was only a matter of time before she came for me. She couldn't let go of the grudge. And sure enough, just a few days later, she showed up at our doorstep, looking more determined than ever. She didn't bother with pleasantries this time. No hello, no how are you. Instead, she came straight to the point. "Olivia, I want you to understand how much I've sacrificed for this family. I've been there for you, I've supported you. And this is how you repay me?" Her voice was sharp, bitter. "You think you can just block me out and ruin everything I've worked for?" I crossed my arms, unfazed. Samantha, I didn't ruin anything. You did that yourself. You made the choices, you played the victim, and now you have to face the consequences. Her eyes flashed with anger, but I didn't flinch. The woman who had once been my sister-in-law, the woman who had twisted every word I said, who had belittled me at every turn, was now broken. She didn't have the upper hand anymore. I didn't want to do this, but you left me no choice, Samantha spat. I'm going to tell everyone that you're just as selfish as I've always said you are. I'll make sure they see how you've treated me, how you've ruined my wedding and my dreams. No one will ever trust you again. I smiled, a cold, calculated smile that she hadn't seen from me before. Go ahead, Samantha, I said, my voice steady. But you should know something. The more you talk, the more people will see you for what you really are. You'll expose yourself. You won't have anyone left to manipulate. Your false accusations won't work this time. She looked at me, her face twisting in frustration, but for the first time, I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. It was no longer the confidence of someone used to getting her way. It was the desperation of someone realizing their facade was crumbling. In the following days, Samantha's attempts to smear my reputation only backfired. She tried to play the victim in front of our extended family, but they were no longer buying her act. They started seeing the truth: Samantha was manipulative, selfish, and toxic. The lies she had spun for years couldn't hold up anymore. Her wedding plans fell apart. The venue she had dreamed of was off the table, and no one was stepping in to help her. Her vision of the perfect wedding was slipping through her fingers, and she knew it. The guilt she tried to lay on me only fueled the fire of her downfall. As for me, things only got better. I had the peace I had been craving for years. I focused on my career, my family, and my well-being. The hotel franchise I owned continued to thrive, and I knew that I had earned everything through hard work, not manipulation. At the next family gathering, Samantha tried to act like nothing had happened, as if she could simply resume her place in the family. But the cracks in her facade were too wide to ignore. The family's trust in her had been shattered, and she could no longer rely on her usual tactics to win people over. I had won. Not just the battle over the wedding venue, but the battle for my own peace of mind, my self-respect, and my future. And as for Samantha, she was left to face the consequences of her actions. Her manipulation had failed, and now she had to pick up the pieces of her own shattered image. As I looked around the room that day, surrounded by my family, I realized something. No matter how much she had tried to tear me down, no matter how hard she had fought to undermine me, I had proven one thing: I was stronger than she could ever imagine. And Samantha? She would have to learn the hard way that you can't manipulate everyone forever.